Hello, welcome to Breakfast Central. This beautiful Monday morning. It's a brand new week, and Ramadan Kareem to our Muslim brothers and sisters out there. This is Breakfast Central, where we bring you everything you need to know about the news. We bring you insightful discussions and everything in between. I am Benga Aburo. Welcome to this brand new week.
And I am Olive Emodi, excited to be back. Just 1 week of being away on leave, and so much already has happened in Nigeria's political landscape. And we're off, and Benga said, Olive, a lot has happened in Nigeria. You snooze, you lose. It's like you disappear for just 24 hours. And the whole country, a lot is happening. I think, starting from the Natasha Akpoti story, it's been very shocking to see the allegations that she's made against the Senate President. And there's so many interesting twists and turns we've seen to the story. One, we've seen the fact that the Senate President's wife has not only, granted a press release, but she sued her, to the sum of billions for the emotional and psychological damage all of this has caused her, and, asking that there be an injunction refraining her from talking about all of these, which she has said to be her truth. And, there's been a response to this by Natasha Akpoti's lawyers, asking her to remove herself from the situation, that the Senate President can defend himself. And I quite agree with the logic of the Senate President being able to defend himself, because in, Senate crimes, what you would expect to be that these are such strong, grave allegations.
Exactly.
And
not
by
just,
now, should have spoken about it.
Not just this person, the institution of the Senate. You expect the Senate spokesperson to have come out to say something about this, but I guess, there are lots of legal angles to this too. Let's not forget that Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan also sued the Senate President for one of his aides. Like you said, there's been reactions from different quarters. Even the former Senate President, in the person of Senator Bukola Saraki, has chipped in to give his own view on what is going on, and he said, they have to investigate this so as to protect the sanctity of the Nigerian Senate. But we've definitely not seen the end of this. And we've also seen reactions from women. A current senator and a former senator, women who you think will be on the side of the women folk and defend this woman, because this is not the first time someone is making sexual allegation claims against a person of the Senate President Godswill Akpabio. If you do recall, a former NDDC boss did talk about sexual harassment against the Senate President, and she said, she took things into her hands and gave him a dirty slap. There was no denial from the Senate President.
Now, what was the end of that matter? Did we ever get a proper investigation? Maybe if we had, this would not have been an issue. I think that all the women who went on the road to be doing protest and saying, no, it's our Akwa Ibom son, they should be ashamed of themselves. And why they should be ashamed of themselves is because we are in a society where women have not been heard, where women are being shut down. It's unfortunate that this is a conversation that we're having in the month of March, where it's International Women's Month. So if there's been an allegation, no one is saying he did or he didn't do it. What we're saying is, first of all, let there be an investigation. If he has clean hands, there's nothing to be afraid about.
Exactly.
Nothing to be afraid for. Just seeing them going to the streets, instead of them demanding that there be an investigation to clear his name, as opposed to saying, no, enough of the insult. He are insulting an Akwa Ibom son. We bring in tribalism into too much in this country, and it's very embarrassing.
If your son has misbehaved, he has a freedom to come out to defend himself.
And just to mention, we're not saying that your son has misbehaved. In fact, for these women to push, the right thing for them to push for would be systems and structures that we ensure clarity with the investigation process, so that if your son's hands are clean, he can easily be vindicated and she can be punished. But again, it reminds us that sometimes, in some cases where we're talking about women are women's own enemies. In this case, it's women that are the enemies of women. It's just really embarrassing.
I do agree with you. But then again, on the flip side, this is Nigeria. That was a rented crowd. If you look at the placards, they didn't write those things there. Somebody was behind the scenes, pulling the strings and directing what we saw over the weekend. So we'll wait and see what happens this week.
Another angle to the conversation we haven't touched on is, the interview granted by a leader, a political leader, where she said, the Senate is for the elderly. It's not for these young people. There's so many other things that she said. But that statement and that line reflects the sentiment the Nigerians and Nigerian politicians have towards politics in Nigeria. And we bring in culture into a lot of things. The culture that tells you, do not challenge your elder, don't ask questions, don't speak back unless you're given the floor to speak. It is that culture that we bring, forgetting that the Senate is a hallowed chamber. It has its own rules. You can speak to the rules of the Senate. There's nothing like respect there. Everybody there, they are all equal.
If the constituents deem it fit to vote in a 21-year-old senator, so
then that's what it is.
And that
exactly.
senator has the same rights as every other senator that is there. So
just to mention, they're all equals.
Yes.
It's why they say that the Senate leader is first amongst equals. But then again, it is what it is.
And still on top stories of the weekend, the courts I think it happened on Friday, struck out a suit by leading human rights lawyer Chief Femi Falana, barring political appointees and government officials from flying out of the country to seek treatment overseas. And it's led to a number of mixed reactions. I guess the court is defending, politicians are Nigerians at the end of the day. If you can afford to seek treatment in a better place, then so be it. Maybe on those grounds, that's why the court gave the...
But that appeal in the drawing rooms of the rich. Nobody talks of religion or ethnicity when they want to destroy and steal the wealth of the country. The question of sex is irrelevant. As a matter of fact, all the armed robbers in Nigeria, all the money they have stolen since 1960 has not been up to 191 billion naira stolen by an executive of a bank. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. Yes. A lady executive of a bank was charged with stealing 250 billion naira. She pleaded with the government, can I do plea bargain? I will return 194 billion naira. Now, and I'm saying all the money stolen by armed robbers since 1960 has not been equal to that. But we are then told by the ruling class, aided by imperialism, that everybody should mind his own business because of the fear that if you have a united African country in Nigeria, 170 million people, that is one of the largest markets in the world. So for them, they want to...
Well, that's Femi Falana speaking so passionately. Of course, he always has been a voice against corruption, against poor leadership. Unfortunately, the result of the court has had mixed reactions. There are those who would have wished that this happened, and it doesn't come as a surprise why he would, of course, want that outcome. When we see a number of politicians traveling abroad for the slightest inconvenience, we've seen it from, exactly, for dental checkup, they go abroad for the last administration, we saw President Muhammadu Buhari travel a lot for his medical checkup. So there's an argument as to their fundamental right. Are you restricting their right to freedom of movement? But then, putting these policies in place, part of why they push for it is because it was embarrassing, to say the least, that somewhere that is the bedrock of medical facilities in the country, Aso Rock, couldn't even boast of a decent medical center. The First Lady then was complaining about it.
This is one of the reasons why Mr. Falana had advocated to stop this medical tourism from politicians, because it would force them to improve the medical facilities in Nigeria. I'll tell you a story. It's a real story. Former President of Malaysia, Dr. Mahathir Mohamad, in his first time in office, he had to undergo, I think, a heart surgery or something like that. And he was meant to go to the United States. He told his handlers that if me, as Prime Minister of this country, if I end up going to the United States, it will not instill confidence in the Malaysian medical sector. So as Prime Minister, as first citizen of this country, I will choose to have this operation in Malaysia. He did the operation in Malaysia. It was successful. And he's still living today. He's in his 90s. So it's in his book called Doctor on Call, Dr. Mahathir Mohamad. So it goes to tell you how much we follow. I mean, you should lead by example as a leader and instill confidence in your country's healthcare system.
Very true indeed. We look forward to the time where Nigerian political leaders can be proud of the healthcare system that we have, that the ministers of health and the commissioners of health in the different states as well will be able to go to the medical facilities in their states as well as in their countries. So much confidence will be instilled in the average Nigerian. Now, let's move away from there to Rivers State, where it's been a pot of hot water that has been boiling and now has spilled over. So much has been happening ever since the court gave the judgment that has now been given multiple interpretations. Wike, of course, seems to have gotten, this one feels like it's 2-0. I don't know if it's 2-0 or 4-0, I'll call it, against Siminalayi Fubara.
It happens to be in a very celebratory mode.
Yes, of course, he is in a celebratory mode. I saw a clip where he was saying that, you know, they should go and beg God. That is if it's possible for them to beg God now. So the question is what the options are for Siminalayi Fubara, for the people of Rivers State, what the implications of this mean. The arguments that I've heard against this would be the fact that they're not certain if the Supreme Court's judgment meant the reinstatement of the 26 lawmakers, even though the Supreme Court did say, you know, that they are depriving the other constituents of proper representation if they pass a budget before a house that was barely constituted, I think 12% constituted.
Didn't make a quorum.
So they weren't able to form a proper quorum. So it's basically, what are the implications of governance? You know, is there still room for reconciliation? Reconciliation was an option on the table when the president stepped in and preferred the peace accord, but does that option still stand? You know, that's one of the conversations we'll be exploring, but I really don't know what this means for Siminalayi Fubara, but it doesn't look good.
I mean, my concern is, as always, with the people of Rivers State, what does it mean for them? What are the implications? Does it mean better governance for them? Because at the end of the day, it's a fight between two gladiators, and the common man in Rivers State is
the one who suffers.
What's the stake in all of this? So at the end of the day, we should always think about, when we're making decisions, how it would affect the common man on the street. Because they're the ones that elected you there in the first place. And you expect the minister, I mean, he's a federal minister of FCT. FCT is many kilometers away from his base. We understand he's former governor of Rivers State, so the sentiments are there. Should focus on delivering, like we always say, the dividends of democracy to the people of the Federal Capital Territory. Why Mr. Fubara focuses on delivering dividends of democracy to the people of Rivers State.
Mr. Fubara has said he's a law-abiding person, and that once he's gotten the certified true copy of the judgment, they'll be sure to follow the Supreme Court's judgment, regardless of how they feel about it.
And that was matured.
Yeah, very. Yeah. But our final story this morning would be a viral video that has been seen online threatening the governor of Anambra State. You know, many have said that this unknown group might be IPOP. We're not quite sure where the video has emerged from, but you can see the video of a man who's unmasked threatening the governor. Let's take a listen.
Soludo, I just want to tell you that Janto is telling you this. I don't have much to tell you. Galiru, Wailigi, because we are coming. Soludo, Galiru, Wailigi, because we are Biafrans, we are coming. Soludo, we are coming. We must come after you. Soludo, remember, and I want to make it openly today for the whole world to hear me out and hear it clearly. Soludo, remember that your first son is the highest criminal in this life, in Biafra land, in the nation. Your first son is the criminal, the highest criminal in this world, in this nation called Biafra. Soludo, remember that your daughter...
Well, that's the video of three men. I think a number of the reactions we've seen about the video will be the fact that, in a way, this might show the deplorable state of Nigeria's security infrastructure, because typically it's not the norm to see people go online and threaten the governor of a state, but for you to threaten, not just threaten, but threaten unmasked. You know, you're not hiding your face, basically showing there is no fear of repercussion, and what this would actually mean. Some people have argued that this might not actually be representatives of the independent people of Biafra, especially because the flag behind them does not represent the popular IPOP flag.
I mean, the man that was talking didn't even claim to be IPOP in the first place. He just said
they are Biafrans. Yes.
So many things to unpack here, like you rightly said, Olive. The state of security and the proliferation of masked men and all sorts of gunmen claiming to fight one cause or the other. I mean, where did they get these weapons from and the uniforms? And I believe Anambra State has an internal security operation there. The men of the Nigerian army and the security agencies there why can't they nip this in the bud? Because it's almost becoming a copycat thing. One person is emboldened, and we've seen the government look at ex-militants and reward them with different sorts of contracts, or use them as
or de-radicalize them,
or
reintegrate them into the
so
society.
It gives you the impetus. Look, I could carry a weapon, and at the end of the day, we would have a plea bargain or some sort of deal with the government. But this has serious dangers, and there's also an international dimension to it. If you look at the full length of the video, he was saying thanks to the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu. I don't know what he did for them. He also thanked Putin and thanked Donald Trump. So I wonder why he had to do that. But anyway, I'm sure the security operatives and the DSS are watching this and would act accordingly.
Anambra State has had a lot of pressure to deal with in the past years, especially with the sit-at-home order and the implication of the sit-at-home order on not just the everyday Southeasterners who want to go about their normal business, but the amount of the millions and billions of naira that are being lost just by them not going to work on Mondays. It's been a hub of, it's really been a very scary time for the people in the Southeast, and we do hope that there's some finality that is being brought in the nearest future to the security challenges that Southeastern Nigeria is facing. And, again, it reminds us that as a nation, we are battling terrorism, we're battling insecurity, because it's happening in different parts. When it's happening in one place, you say, oh, it's not happening to me, it's happening to these people, but you forget that what goes around comes around, eventually.
Olive, just before we go, just wanted to update you. While you were away, the Ezenwines and the DBS in Anambra State protested, and over the weekend, there was a release by the Association of DBS and Ezenwines. They said, the governor is witch hunting them, so they would present a list of fake pastors to the Anambra State.
Wait, governor is witch hunting people that some may even call witches. How can you witch hunting?
Not wizard hunting them.
Yeah.
Okay. Just to update you there.
This brings a close to the wake-up conversations we have this morning. Some of the stories we've already discussed, we'll be looking at in further details much later this morning. But let's wrap up the conversation this morning on the sweet spot. The Oscars have happened, and we have our entertainment correspondent, Edewa Jueshi, to bring us all the scoop regarding the Oscars. Over to you, Edewa. Were you over there?
Welcome back from Los Angeles,
I was close to the location, but because of the hustle and bustle, I said, no, I don't like too much crowd. Let me just stay, far away. But I still got all the information about the Oscars.
All right.
Good to have you, Adele.
Yes, man. Good to be here. So now, the 97th Academy Awards was held today at the Dolby Theatre in Los Angeles, and the theme of this year was celebration and connection. Now, this was aimed at the global film community following the destructions from the fires that happened at Los Angeles. Now, Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande performed alongside others like Doja Cat, Lisa, Queen Latifah, and British singer Raye. Now, there was also a musical tribute to the late producer and composer Quincy Jones, and a special appearance by the Los Angeles Master Chorale. Now, the night had 23 award categories, with Emilia Pérez leading with 13 nominations, while The Brutalist and The Wicked had 10 each. Now, just to run us quickly through some of the categories that caught the attention of some people, as for the Best Picture, Aurora was the one who went home with that category after going up against The Brutalist, Emilia Pérez, and some other big movies as well. Then for Best Actor, we had Adrian Brody. Now, Adrian Brody from The Brutalist, he went home with the Best Actor award there, and it was quite shocking, but hey, people took it. They had no choice. For Best Actress, this one caused a conversation during the awards, because Cynthia Erivo was supposed to, people were hoping that Cynthia Erivo would go home with this award, because this is like the third time where she has been nominated for the Oscars but didn't get it. Now, the winner for the Best Actress was Mickey Madison for Anora, and like I said, Cynthia Erivo, our Nigerian blood, wasn't able to get that. Then for Best Supporting Actress, the winner was Zoe Saldana for Emilia Pérez, beating Ariana Grande, again, for the Wicked. People hoped that Wicked would get that as well, but they didn't. Then for Best Supporting Actor, we had Kieran Culkin for A Real Pain. Now, that wasn't so, people didn't have an issue with that because, yes, he really performed well at that movie and people really loved him. Now, for Best Director, the winner for Best Director was Sean Baker. Anora again. Now, this movie created a whole lot of buzz throughout the awards because, if I should say, that movie was huge. Now, the Best International Film Feature. Now, this one caught the attention of Nigeria because we sent in a movie that was supposed to be nominated, but it didn't make the cut. I'm talking about May Tama, that's May Mahaba, I beg your pardon. It was supposed to be nominated, but it didn't make the cut because they said it wasn't voted properly and all that. So that conversation didn't happen. But the winner for the Best International Film was I'm Still Here, and they took home that. There was a Brazilian movie that, took home that category, yeah. So let's talk about the Best Cinematography quickly. We had The Brutalist taking that home as well. We had the Best Screenplay. We have Conclave taking that as well. We had the Best Original Screenplay there. Anora took that again. Best Song winner was May for Emilia Pérez. Best Score winner was The Brutalist again. The Best Animated Film winner was Flow. People were hoping Inside Out 2 would take that, but they didn't. Now, the Best Documentary Feature was No Other Land. They took that as well. Best Costume Design, Wicked had the opportunity to grab that.
Finally.
Best Makeup and Stylist, The Substance took that. Best Design, Wicked again took that as well. Best Sound, that was gotten by Dune Part 2, for those of you who have seen Dune. Then Best Film Editing winner was Anora again. Best Visual Effects, Dune took that. Best Live Action Short, that was I Am Not a Robot, they took that. Best Animated Short, In the Shadow of the Cypress. Then Best Documentary Short, the winner was The Only Girl in the Orchestra. Then this, for the whole night, the biggest movie that went home with 5 awards was Anora, if I should say so myself. Anora had 5 awards, but the highest nominated movie was Emilia Pérez. That was 13 nominations, but they only went home with 3. So Anora was the biggest winner for the night. And, it was such a very unexpected situation as we saw that, but hey, that was what we had there. So yes, with some other snubs that happened, people didn't expect to happen. We saw that Denzel Washington was not nominated at all. Nicole Kidman wasn't as well. Amy Adams, Tilda Swinton, and Daniel Craig. And this caused a lot of conversations. But yes, these are major things that happened at the Oscars this morning. And yes, that's
very interesting too.
Yeah, I saw the controversy regarding Zoe Saldana winning the Best Actress Best Supporting Actress, I believe. Yes, for Emilia Pérez.
Yes.
Part of the, she was excited in her speech. She did say that she's the first woman of Dominican descent to be winning this award, and hopefully she wouldn't be last. She spoke Spanish in the movie. Her grandmother will be so proud of her. So majority of the reactions I did see was that she shouldn't have won it for this film. She should have won it much earlier. Now, no one can deny Zoe Saldana's
compensating her.
Yeah, no one can deny how much of a fantastic actor she is. From Colombiana to I've forgotten this one where her husband had cancer and he died, and everybody was crying because we were watching this movie on Netflix. To Avatar. She's just had her filmography is excellent. So I will say congratulations to her. Of course, different people have different reactions. Another person, the Best Supporting Actor, his speech, I think it was the most interesting speech, where he said his wife owes him a 4th child because he had asked her for a 4th child. And she was like, I'll give you a 4th child when you win the Oscar.
When you win the Oscar.
And
I guess we'll find out in 9 months' time. I also wanted to point this out, the controversy over the Best Actress, the Best, Cynthia Erivo. If Kanye West was there, would have had a Beyonce and
Really,
moments, you know.
Wow, I mean, so much happened.
Yes.
But congratulations to all the winners. Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande did a wonderful opening.
Yes.
I think it's been the year of Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande.
We were hoping she was going to bring home the award of the best actress, but
our emo sister.
you know
it's
now.
Okay. It's okay.
Before we let you go, Adele,
Yes.
I mean, if you look at global box office numbers, they're dropping. They're not making as much money as they did in the past. What's going on? Is it that people are tired, or we're tired of seeing this blockbuster franchise repeat and do a part 3, part 4, or people are watching Nollywood?
I think the priors of maybe might be the situation we see when you do so many, you know, part 1, 2, 3, 4. People get, you know, what else can you really give us? So people are probably looking for originals, and we're hoping that they look towards this side of the world. Maybe we'll have more of our movies out there that they can enjoy.
And we need to also start to support our own here. Whilst we are getting upset that the Oscars shunned Nollywood movies, we need to be able to build our own up to an international standard as well, so that other people can aspire to be nominated
for
in our
viewers,
AMVCA.
if you're not very familiar with Olive, apart from being a legal luminary, she's a lawyer, she's also a famed actress.
I knew you were going to say that.
She's an actress, and we look forward to celebrating your Oscar one day.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I'll dedicate the award to
Olive, we'll talk about you definitely when you win that award. We invite you.
Thank you. I'll cut out this clip for memory's sake. All right, let's. Edward, thank you for joining us this morning, bringing us all the updates from the Oscars. Now it's time for us to bring to our viewers what our top stories are this morning on Breakfast Central. This morning, Fubara reluctantly acts on Supreme Court judgment. I'll be bringing more details on what Rivers State looks like and what the implications are. Fubara orders new local government polls, of course, as a result of the Supreme Court nullifying the previous local government polls. Natasha versus Akpabio, reactions trail sexual harassment claims. Senate President keeps mum amidst sexual harassment allegations. We've been expecting a feedback from him. Hopefully we'll get that today. The newspaper front pages will be reviewed this morning on Breakfast Central. Join us for all these and more on Breakfast Central. University Don and Professor of Arabic Language, Dawood, has tasked fellow Muslim faithfuls in Nigeria to leverage the benefits of the holy month Ramadan. Speaking with News Central television crew in the Kano State capital, Professor Dawood says that he is confident that with prayers in the holy month of Ramadan, Nigeria can get over its current economic challenges. News Central's Emmanuel Bagudu reports.
It's Ramadan, and here in Kano, activities to mark the holy month have kick-started. The Kano state government received a delegation from Saudi Arabia who donated dates for the less privileged to enable them observe the holy month. Professor of Arabic Studies from the Bayero University, Kano, took time to highlight the benefits of the holy month.
In the month of Ramadan, we have a great night, the night of Laylatul Qadr, which is if you are opportune to rise during the night, pray, your prayer will be accepted, and indeed you will win great bless of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The reminder, more importantly, as said by one scholar, Muhammad al-Ghazali, in his book Ruh al-Din al-Islami, Khulq al-Muslim, the good conduct of a Muslim, that our prayer, our hajj, our sadaqat we give, the secret hidden in all these worships are not only just to a physical exercise. No, it is to train us to mold our character.
Some other stakeholders say prayers can move mountains, thus its importance to fixing the nation's economic challenges.
taking a look at the situation of fasting, you must insist that first you serve God. Number two, you become very sympathetic and considerate to people below you and even to people by your side.
The Ramadan prayers will continue for the next 30 days, and as the custom is, Muslim faithful will fully participate in the activities marking the holy month. In Kano for News Central, I am Emmanuel Bagudu.
On the screen there is heartfelt praising, some would say it's dance and jubilation, from the camp of former Rivers State Governor, the current Minister of the FCT, Nyesom Wike. Now on Friday, February 28, 2025, the Supreme Court passed judgment and handed the reins of power to the Martins Amaewhule-led State House of Assembly, it would seem, although that is still subject to debate. But after the pronouncement, former governor of the state, Nyesom Wike, had this to say.
There is nothing like Amaewhule faction. I think what the Supreme Court said, the budget should be presented to the properly constituted assembly, which is the authentic leadership of the assembly led by Martin Chike Amaewhule. But first of all, let's give God the glory, let's give God the honor that today, being the 28th of February 2025, God I'm able to do it all for everybody, for the interest of the people of the state. I've always said that the will of justice is sluggish, but it will come when it will come.
Meanwhile, in a swift reaction, Governor Siminalayi Fubara has assured people of the All-Reach State that he will implement without reservations the recent Supreme Court verdict after carefully reviewing a certified true copy. There are concerns following a statement about reviewing the CTC, which is compared to having thrown in a caveat into his decision. Nevertheless, the embattled governor had more to say.
We are all aware of the recent Supreme Court judgment and the pronouncement regarding aspects of the lingering political disputes in our dear state. Although we disagree with the judgment, we are bound to obey the order made therein as a law-abiding government. Since inception, we have conducted the affair of government within the framework of our Constitution, due process, and the rule of law. While we are not above mistakes, because we are humans, we believe that we have not, as a government, done anything deliberately to trample on the rule of law or the hallowed principles of constitutional governance. Accordingly, I've had a meeting with my team of lawyers, and they have assured me that the certified true copy of the judgment may be available to them by Friday, the 7th March of 2020.
There are certain areas, however, that need some clarification following the governor's statement directing all heads of local government administration to immediately take over the administration of the 23 local government councils pending the conduct of fresh elections by the Rivers State Independent Electoral Commission. Does this mean that the Martins Amaewhule camp will not resume today? Who and what order will the police abide by?
Would there be mounted pressure and the governor declaring a state of emergency should violence erupt? And what is the way forward for Governor Siminalayi Fubara? Now, join us this morning for this discussion is founder and CEO of the Albino Foundation, Jack Epele, and legal practitioner Emmanuel-Eriri. Mr. Jake will be joining us during the course of our conversation. Now, good morning to you, Barrister Eriri, and thanks for joining us on Breakfast Central. Can you kindly unmute your device if you can, please? Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much for joining us this morning. And what's your reaction to the Supreme Court judgment on Friday, and what legal arguments presented in the case, and on what basis did the Supreme Court make this ruling?
Well, first and foremost, I want to appreciate the Supreme Court for coming out with this landmark decision with respect to the political crisis that have ravaged Rivers State. You see, the rule of law and the doctrine of separation of power has actually played out in the decision that have been handed down by the Supreme Court. And that is the way to go in a nascent democracy. Now, the crisis that have been ravaging Rivers State in the last year actually have been laid to rest by the Supreme Court by its decision. First and foremost, what were the issues? I think we need to enumerate the issues for you to appreciate.
Mr. Ariri, are you with us? Okay, there seems to be a bit of a technical network glitch there. We're hoping that that can be resolved so we can get back into the conversation. But there are a number of matters that, issues that Emmanuel-Eriri will speak to. But what we can all agree would be the fact that the elections that were conducted in Rivers State, October 5th elections that were conducted last year, that the Supreme Court has set this election aside, meaning that there will be new elections that will be carried out in, to determine who the local government chairmen are. Also, the court had upheld the judgment that had stopped the central bank from disbursing allocation to Rivers State, pending certain conditions being met.
And one of the questions I wanted to ask the legal expert is, at what point do you know that those conditions have been met? Is there a time frame, and how do we? I mean, one of the conditions would be that, the governor has come out to say, I'm going to respect the order of the Supreme Court, even though I have my reservations. And we saw that in his speech to the
press,
to the press yesterday. So I guess it's one of them, and of course the conduct of fresh elections, which is another issue. And there are also political issues around it, that these would have effects on payment of salaries and running of the state projects and all of that. That was the Supreme Court right to, to add such a, some would say, extreme measure in order to force compliance.
Right. I mean, also to look at the case about the legitimacy of the lawmakers. The argument I've seen against it would be the fact that there's still another case challenging the legitimacy of the Martin Amaewhule-led administration and sort of determining if they are still legally entitled to refer to themselves as members of the House based off the allegations of them, saying that they're moving the campaign, right? So, because there's another matter, one of the interpretations I saw, some people say the Supreme Court should attend to matters brought before it, and because there's another matter.
Exactly. They can't decide, okay, this is also Rivers State, let's talk about it.
Yes.
They can only act on what is before it. But these things take time. They say the axles of the judiciary grinds really slowly. So, and there are real life implications. People need to be paid salaries. Development needs to happen. There are ongoing projects. You need to pay contractors and all of that. I've seen this sort of situation play out in Lagos State when the current president was governor. He created local government development areas, LCDAs, and the then president, Olusegun Obasanjo, wasn't happy about it. So he stopped allocation to Lagos State, and I guess that's one of the reasons why they've been able to grow their internal revenue to what it is today. So they were forced to, look inwards, and maybe Rivers State might be looking towards that. But I don't think it's going to take that long. Governor Fubara has come out to say, look, I respect the decision of the Supreme Court, so we should expect compliance from him. And of course, I'm sure he's talking to his Attorney General and getting legal advice from him and of course his team.
And it's also interesting. It will be interesting to get a sense of what people of Rivers State are feeling about the Supreme Court judgment, especially because when this matter had been in court for the longest time, the rivalry had been on for a while. But we saw that Siminalayi Fubara seemed to get a lot of support from the people of Rivers State. Remember when the assembly complex was broken down? Many people didn't speak against it as much as they should have. They said it was politics, aura for aura, band for band, So a number of the times when it seemed like Siminalayi Fubara may have gotten some measure of criticism, he was getting support instead. So I wonder if the people who threw their support behind Siminalayi Fubara will now withdraw it based on the fact that the tide seems to have turned in favor of Governor Nyesom Wike, who refers to the Supreme Court judgment, saying that it is the end of the reign of impunity in Rivers State. What this reign of impunity would look like would be, of course, him referring to the fact that Siminalayi Fubara dared to present a budget to
4 people.
4 people, right? The argument, some would argue that he may have done something similar. It wasn't 4 people, but he's also presented a budget to an incomplete house.
That is not so holy.
Right.
And there are more questions about the political stability of Rivers State. What happens next? Okay, now the Supreme Court has spoken. Does it mean that, both parties will shift their swords? Is there any new room for further reconciliation and all of that? And of course, the battle for 2027. It's funny how we always look 2 years ahead. We haven't even gone past half of 2025. And in most political discussions, there's always talk about the next electoral cycle. I guess that's what happens.
And you know what the future
Nigeria.
of it might be for not just the people of Rivers State, but also the political career of Siminalayi Fubara. There was a point where settlement was an option on the table when he just got into the office, when the initial issue started, and the president, intervened as the leader of their party. He intervened. The peace accord, was brokered. And they seem to have terms and conditions,
yes.
But it was temporary peace. It was the calm before the storm that eventually broke loose. And Siminalayi Fubara was determined to fight to the finish. So what will this mean? If the 27 lawmakers are reinstated, is there a possibility that they might impeach him? And if they impeach him, what next?
Yes.
Does that then mean that we might have to conduct elections? Or do we then say that the governorship then, who then becomes the governor? What are the chances of Tony Patrico, who was a candidate of the People's Democrat, of the All Progressives Congress, I beg your pardon? What are his chances in Rivers State? Does this
very valid
increase his chances?
And pertinent questions, especially the impeachment angle. But I believe we have Barrister Eriri back with us. Yes, so thank you very much. You were talking to us about your interpretation of the judgments. Could you pick up from...
And I think you stopped at, there were certain issues, and it was the issues you were about to list.
Yes. Like I said earlier on, the issues that necessitated the decision by the Supreme Court, by members who have approached the court right from the High Courts, Federal High Court and Court of Appeal respectively, has to do with, one, the budget presentation by the governor of Rivers State, Sim Fubara, to only 5 members of the Rivers State House of Assembly, whereas there are other 27 members who were elected by their elected representatives from various constituencies. And by virtue of Section 120, 121, and 122 of the 1999 Constitution, which has to do with powers and control of public funds, whereby the governor of the state would present an appropriation bill before the House for authorization for expenditure for the next fiscal year or financial year. Now, those members were denied that privilege of presentation of the bill, including the Speaker and the 26 members who approached down to the Supreme Court to give validity to such appropriation bill by the governor. Now, the governor's own position is that because they defected from political party A to political party B, that by virtue of section 109, they've lost their seats by such defection. But the court is here to make pronouncement on that issue of defection by those members, and until that pronouncement is here to be made, those members are still valid members of the House of Assembly, that the Rivers State governor ought to present the budget before them. That is on one breath. Then two, on the other breath is that with respect to the local government autonomy given to local government and the time frame for which elections need to be conducted, the governor, in a bid to meet the deadline of October, directed or mandated the State Independent Electoral Committee to conduct local government elections as the local government elections as a third tier of government are be given full-fledged autonomy like the states and the federal government. Again, there were flagrant breaches of the Electoral Acts, which regulates alongside other enabling statutes of electoral law for the conduct of local government election. Now, what are the breaches? First and foremost, electoral processes are kick-started with voters' registration and other incidents that follows thereafter. Now, the people said the provision of Section 9 of the Electoral Act with respect to national voters' registration have not been complied with respect to also giving mandatory 360 days for the election to be conducted at the local government level. Now, notwithstanding the Federal High Court decision stopping INEC from releasing voters' register to Rivers State government for the conduct of the election, the Rivers State Independent Electoral Commission still went ahead to conduct that election. And in view of Section 150 of the Electoral Act, paragraph 4, it said, paragraph 3, it said, sub 3, it said, any election to a local government area that is conducted by a state electoral commission in violation of subsection 1 shall be invalid. It is as a result of Section 150, sub 1, paragraph sub 1, 2, and 3, that the Supreme Court said the exercise conducted at the Rivers State by the Rivers State Independent Electoral Commission with respect to the local government election is invalid. So that is the other breath. And then the third breath is that funds honorably from the money allocation to be given to Rivers State, in as much as the governor have acted executively recklessly, that such funds should not be released by CBN to Rivers State government pending when a democratically elected local government administration is put in place and when it represents the budget of 2024 to a constituted House of Assembly in place.
Wow, so many issues here to establish, so many gray areas. And I think the one that stands out most for me is also determining the state of Martin Amaewhule and the other lawmakers. What are your expectations as to what the next steps should be? The governor has said that he's going to wait until they get a copy of the certified true copy of the judgment, and maybe they should get to this week and then they'll know what the next steps are. But what do you believe the next steps should be?
Well, the next step, if you listen to the broadcast by the governor after delivery of the judgment, even though he's here to receive the certified true copy of the judgment, as he said, that the team of lawyers are awaiting the delivery of same by Friday. If he study it and the legal team, the only advice they will give to him is to abide by the orders made by the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court is the final court of the land. His judgment, whether you are dissatisfied or not, you have no other way or avenue to appeal against it. It remains final. Now, what is expected of the governor is to quickly appreciate and recognize the fact that Honorable Martins and the other members are still the elected representatives of the Rivers State House of Assembly, notwithstanding their defection to another political party, which is already sub judice before the courts. Now, the representation of the appropriation bill before them should be done as a matter of urgency. Now, I'm even happy that he appreciates the fact that, yes, the Supreme Court has made a final pronouncement, even though it's not in agreement with the judgment so delivered. But the judgment remains valid and subsisting, and he should do the needful to ensure that the House is formally inaugurated. Even though they have been inaugurated at its first sitting, they should continue their legislative business, because these members are representing constituencies who are expectant of what their representative ought to bring to their table. They have been denied representation all this while because of the legal tussle between the legislative arm and the executive arm, which have been resolved finally by the Supreme Court, which is the judicial arm. So the governor, as a matter of urgency, should allow them to come back to work, ensure that he presents the budget to them, and like he rightly said, the local commissioner, he has told them to hand over the reins of power to the administrators, pending when the state independent electoral committee would conduct election. Now again, the problem I have with the reconducting of that election is that the state independent electoral committee should, as a matter of urgency, comply with.
Okay, it's time for us to thank you, Barrister Riri. It's time for us to bring in our second guest on this topic, Mr. Jake Epele, joining us from Switzerland. Very good morning to you, Mr. Epele, and thanks for joining us on Breakfast Central.
Thanks, and good morning, Nigerians. News Central, you're always at your game. Thank you for informing Nigerians and being very objective in your reportage.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. You're from Rivers State, and I guess this is very close to your heart and very personal. How does this Supreme Court judgment, how does the ruling impact the ongoing power struggle between Governor Fubara and FCT Minister Nyesom Wike? Do you think the Supreme Court judgment would allow both parties to sheath their swords so that peace can reign and governance will go on in Rivers State?
Thank you for that question. I am here in Geneva to attend Convention of Rights of Persons with Disability, which is an arm of the human right. And so as human right defender, one of my role is to ensure that rule of law is adhered strictly. And the Supreme Court is the highest court in the land. I may not totally, absolutely, in my personal opinion, agree with some of their rulings, but there's nothing anybody can do. You know, I will come back to this, but however, the impact of this decision, and sometimes I wonder if these judges, you know, think of the impact of their decisions on the common people. I know that lawyers will say there is no emotion in law, and sometimes they even say there is no morality in law, you know, but I always advocate for recognition of morality in the midst of legality. It's one thing to say withhold allocation, and my brother and sister, this is why I make no apologies when I shed tears on channel. And I'm almost close to that, because this is going to take a huge impact on the common people. I speak for the common people. I am amongst the common people. This is going to take a toll on access to health, access to education, access to simple social services. And I want to say this is not about Fubara. This is not about trying to get to an individual. In doing this, you impact the whole community, you know, and I don't know. I haven't read the full judgment. Neither am I a lawyer, but my moral, objective interpretation shows that there's still a pending case, which this judgment, in my opinion, does not nullify. And that pending case is the case of whether these 27 lawmakers are still recognized by law, or maybe a further interpretation of Section 109 subsection G. I hope I'm correct in putting that. That clarity needs to be made available, because right now what you're seeing is misinterpretation, miscommunication, all kinds of private interpretation. This is what I want. I want this at the beginning, that this whole scenario is going to throw the state and the nation into a constitutional crisis. And it's playing out. Right now, it's playing out. I don't care who. Go ahead.
I think another angle I would like to hear from is, in terms of how the reaction is in Rivers State. When the crisis was brewing, we saw that Siminalayi Fubara got a lot of support from elders, political leaders in Rivers State, and even from the people. Now that the tide seems to have turned, what's the reaction? Is he still getting that support, or have people now leaned more towards former Governor Nyesom Wike?
I don't need to think twice to answer this. Yes. Siminalayi enjoys huge support. Huge support. You can't beat that. Forget about what you see on TV. There are pockets of support for the pro-Wike, which oftentimes happens in Abuja or some side of Port Harcourt that is leaning towards him. Now, but that's not where I'm going. As an elder, my job is to call for peace. Enough is enough. The pain is too much on the populace of Rivers State. Enough is enough. Governance have been stifled. The ability of the sitting governor to do the needful have become practically impossible. Sometimes I chatted with him a few days ago. The guy is just traumatized, not because of the judgment. It's the fact that he just can't do the thing that he swore to do. So I think, now there news peddling that, they are going to start impeachment proceeding. I mean, I don't have evidence to say that, but it's making round. Okay. However, look, if I'm Wike, this is the time to show maturity. This is the time to show. He's always talking about integrity. This is the time to show integrity. He will become the hero of this process if at the end of the day he said, look, I proved my point, you can go ahead and go.
Okay, do you think that anything could have been done differently?
Around the corner. Sir?
Do you think anything could have been done differently? And what would you say to those who have criticized you and other elders in Rivers State, saying that you probably did not meddle in as early as you should have and in the way that you should have, to ensure that the two warring factions would have had some form of peace?
Will you believe that? How many times have I been on your show calling for peace? I've tried as much as possible, despite the fact that I always make sure that I make this conflict of interest known, that I'm from Opopo. I know Sim. He's my brother. I'm not going to deny him because right now it looks like things are not going his way. All right. I believe that he is a good leader. I believe that he means well. Did the elders try to nip this in the bud? We did. The point is that, unfortunately, he may have his reason, and rightly so. It was difficult to reach somebody like Wike. I've been on TV, even on channel on Friday. I called to say if he wants to meet with me, I am willing to meet with him. He is not Nobody has it all. Nobody is perfect. You know, well, he may say, who am I? What can I do? I'm not a politician. You understand? You never know who God can use.
Okay, now, Mr. Pele, just before we wrap this up, finally, like you said, you speak for the people, and your concern is for the ordinary people, and we've seen the implications of this from the Supreme Court ruling. Now, looking at Nigeria holistically and looking towards the future, looking ahead, how do we prevent this successor and the current governor clash and schisms from happening? If you look at Kaduna State, we have the same with Governor Obasani and former FCT Minister Nasir El-Rufai. What can we do as a people to, you know, let this their predecessors leave their successors to just face the business of governance in their states?
You know, my friend, if I were to be in Nigeria, probably in Lagos, I would have forcefully tell Kayode to bring both of you, and I would like to have lunch with you, because this is a nationalist, patriotic question that you have asked, and I commend you for that. Now, what do? We need to make sure. Let me call on the president. Let me call on influential people. We need to bring Wike and Fubara into one room and let them know that they can inflame River State with what is happening. They can throw the entire state into anarchy. Listen, my friend, I'm not a harbinger of bad news. Go and check wars, civil war, genocide. It starts like this. And if we keep treating this like, oh, it doesn't matter, you know, this is we're on the path of a dangerous, very dangerous situation. And it's the poor that will suffer. Most of these politicians, their children are abroad. They feel that they are safe. You understand? But let me go back to what we can do. 1, reconciliation. 2, reconciliation. 3, reconciliation. But I know we're struggling with time. You see, the judiciary needs to be very, very careful, because the judiciary is gradually stifling, destroying the democratic process in Nigeria. Now, we will go and elect somebody that should lead. The court will decide who leads. This nonsense must stop. It's not the level of meddling of judicial, and not of the judges. I mean, there are fantastic judges, excellent judges, you know. I was in court a few days ago.
I wish we had so much time to unpack all of this, but I do like to say a big thank you to you, and we definitely will have you back. Thank you very much.
There's a whole lot to talk about. We need to fix judiciary. Judiciary is the bane of the problem of democracy in Nigeria.
Right.
I don't care if they want to arrest me, let them arrest me when I come back.
No, Jacob Pele, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
And also Barrister Emmanuel Eriri, who joined us earlier from Delta State. Thank you.
All right, now let's share with you what the conversations we've had this morning and let you know what's coming up next. This morning on Breakfast Central, Fubara reluctantly acts on Supreme Court judgment. We had Jake Epele and Emmanuel Eriri join us to look at the update in River State, especially as Fubara has now ordered new local government polls. Now, we also discussed Nigerian Muslims' urge to leverage benefits of Holy Month. We say Ramadan Kareem to all our Muslim brothers and sisters for this month. Now, let's share with you what's coming up next for the next hour on Breakfast Central. Senate President keeps mom amid sexual harassment allegations. We reviewed the newspaper front pages. We have our guest, Dr. Ojo, joining us, and we'll open the phone lines. And Benga brings you Which Way Nigeria.
Welcome back to Breakfast Central. It's time for us to find out what big stories are making headlines today. And join us to review the newspapers is public affairs analyst Dotun Ojon. Dotun, good morning to you.
Good morning. It's good to be here this morning.
Okay, let's start with the first newspaper here, the Nigerian Tribune. The headline says, Fubara to implement Supreme Court verdict and orders local government chairman to hand over. The writer says, ask heads of local government agencies to take over council administration. Also on the front page of the Nigerian Tribune, NLC threatens mass action over telecom electricity tariff hikes. We have no petition, alleged sexual harassment against Akpabio. The media aide fought Saraki, says the writer. And also on the front page of the Tribune, why I didn't implement 2014 confab recommendations, says former President Goodluck Jonathan. And we also have new ATM fees, customers groan as banks begin implementations. Doctor, I guess the biggest story there is Fubara to implement Supreme Court verdict, orders local government chairman to hand over the crisis in River State and the Supreme Court verdict.
What a good way to start this morning. I just returned from Rivers, and I actually used the opportunity to interact with the people. And one of the significant things that I saw is that the reality is that Fubara seems to have the people, but Wike has the politics. And it's in politicking, you need to be very careful, because the people can drive your community to prosperity, but when it comes to posterity, it is your politics that will drive it. So, in other words, your people can actually make a direction for your community, but it is the politics that will talk about the destination. So, it's a very delicate twist of what we have in Rivers at the moment. But again, the place of the people in our politicking must continue to take prominence. At the end of the day, they say it in our local parlance that when two elephants fight, the grass will eventually suffer. So I am concerned about the people, and I think it has got to a point. It's not about who won. It's not about who lost. It is the reality of the fact that we have played the kind of politics we have played in River, we have seen in Rivers. At the end of the day, we do not want two things that we do not want at the end of the day. The essence of democracy is to be able to deliver the dividends of the process to the people. And anything that's going to stop that, we don't want it, and we continue to pray and talk against it. So what we have in Rivers, and I'm so happy that the governor is actually coming out to say, we will study the judgment, we'll have the certified truth and implement. And one of the implementation is that from today now, the director of local government administration will take over as the head of the local government. And that's coming out of the fact that you remember the Supreme Court judgment that says that elected people should run the local government. And that's very, very important. I really love what the federal government is trying to do within the context of what they have the power to do. Because for us to give autonomy to the local government, we need to actually work on our constitution. But within the context of what the federal government is going to do is the fact that, they will have more access to money. And of course, when you have more access to money, it's believed that the basic things that the local government should do should be done. We talk about the basic health center, we talk about primary school, we can also talk about constant engagement with the people. One reason today why it looks as if your government is really very far from you is because of the fact that the local government have not been functioning. So they don't exist. So you just look at it. The essence of local government is to continue to engage the community. So you have a sense of belonging. There was a leadership concept that I developed in 2015. I call it character of leadership. And the R there means returning power to the people. Let them have a sense in the process of their governance. And in Nigeria today, the best way to do that is actually to allow local government to thrive. We're looking at what's going to happen, and we also, I will call it maturity. We also expect maturity from the other side to be able to sit on the table with the elders, with the community leaders, to be able to say, okay, at this point in time, we need to unite for the common good of the people. If we continue to play volatile politics, the people may continue to suffer.
Okay, now let's take a look at the second newspaper we have today. That's the Guardian newspapers. The headline says, a bloated 41 trillion revenue target stokes fresh fiscal deficit concerns, talking about the 2025 budget. We also have IBB's June 12 account, too little, too late. June 12, Olanipekun berates Babangida for not apologizing to Abiola's family and to Nigerians. We still have reactions trailing the launch of the former president's autobiography. Iowa Council Forum calls for probe over Akpabio Akpoti-Uduaghan's face-off. That's on page 3 of the Guardian newspapers. And House moves against oil firms owing 9.4 trillion naira in royalties and others. That's quite a huge sum. And you can't play God. Wike tells Fubara as governor pledges obedience to Supreme Court orders. And Dangote absorbs 16 billion naira marketers loss from price reduction. So that's what we have on the front page of The Guardian. Bloated 41 trillion naira revenue target stokes fresh fiscal deficit concerns. Looking at Nigeria's budget, do you have any comments on that?
Okay, so I've said it repeatedly here that when you pick the budget of any nation and you understand politics and the process of governance, you can tell the destiny direction of that nation, because the component of your budget is not only to guide you, it is to tell the community where you are going, your destination at the end of the day. So, and it makes it very important. And that's why they always say when anybody goes out of the budget, it's called misappropriation and all of that, and such person can actually be impeached. Is that serious? But with what we've had now, I think we've not paid enough attention to the content of our budget. And there's always this, before I got to leadership places, I think it's a personal problem when you think you need more money to actually be prosperous. And the idea is that how you manage little determines how you're going to manage more when you have more. And I think it's the problem we have in government also. We always want, always wanting big sums of money, big amount of money. And that's why you see consistently in Nigeria, starting from all the state government, you will have seen the trajectory that this year budget will be bigger than last year budget. It doesn't matter the level at which our executions were last year. So it's always about more money. And I'm concerned. And I said it, if you remember, maybe the last time I came here, that we must get to a point where we understand the concept of budget. Budget has a lifespan. And anything that has a lifespan can actually be reduced or extended. What do I mean? If you did a budget of 20 billion naira, for example, and you see that you're struggling to execute it 40% or 30%, there's nothing that stops you from actually legislating elongation of that budget. That means that you have a budget, you carry it over to next year. You just do a little bit of addition as to recurrent expenditure to cover the salaries and all of those little expenses, and you carry the bulk of the budget to next year. What this government will do for the next 4 years, I want to believe that they already know. They already know what they will do in the next 4 years. So if you know what you do in the next 4 years, then it's going to be easy for you that, oh, I'm going to tar 1,000 kilometers of road. This year, I'm tying 50 kilometers. If I am unable to finish that, there's no point making additional budget next year. I just carry over that one to the next year. So,
like they say, government is a continuum.
It's a continuum.
Now let's look at this.
I think why we're talking about deficit all the time is because we pay attention to more money than more mission.
You're absolutely correct. Now let's look at this. It was one of the biggest stories last week, and there are different dimensions. People have made comments on it, and we're also looking at the sanctity of the Senate, because it's a very important arm of government. The ACF has called for probe over Akpabio Akpoti-Uduaghan's face-off. The Senate President has not released any statement yet, but we've seen Senator Akpoti-Uduaghan's interviews, and other people, even the former Senate President Bukola Saraki has chipped in. What do you make of all of this that is happening? And do you believe, or do you toe the line of the ACF that, look, it's gone beyond in-house affair. Nigerians have a duty to, they need to know what's really going on. Calling for a probe into this.
Okay, so we've experienced two major forms of government, if you allow me to call military rule some kind of government too. So we've experienced military and democracy. And one thing that differentiates democracy from military is actually the National Assembly. That's the only thing. You have executive in military, you have judiciary in military, but you don't have the legislature. So the symbol of our democracy is actually our legislature. So when it gets to a point where sensitive issues like this are being discussed, then the question mark is not just only on our nation, it's also on our democracy. And I don't think, if not because Nigeria is a one-week event kind of state, that this week now we'll hammer on something, next week we forget. I think we shouldn't even, I think ACF does not even need to call for probe before a probe will be established. It is that serious. I've listened to Akpoti-Uduaghan, I've listened to the wife of the Senate President, and without making judgment, but there's the need for one to know more. In fact, knowing more will help our democracy, because this is a very sensitive matter. We are at a point where we are calling for more women participation in government, not to be used only for political campaigns, and after that, you leave them in the marketplaces. And if we are having issues like this, then it becomes exceedingly difficult, if not practically impossible, for men to encourage their women to go into politics. And you and I will agree to the fact that women seem to have the capacity to multitask and do better in some of the positions. Yes. Telling from some of the positions that they have occupied. In fact, I think men often, many of us actually lack empathy in the process of governance. And that's why you see that people steal billions of naira, because there's no empathy in the process of governance. They cannot think about the welfare of the other person. And they, so all of this also translates showing emotions as weakness, like the Miranda case. But let's quickly look at our third newspaper, the Vanguard newspapers. The headline says, "Anxiety as Fubara begins implementation." And the writer says, agrees to conduct local government elections, directs council chairman to hand over to heads of local government administrations, and Rivers Elders Councils reacts. Also on the front page of the Vanguard newspaper is plots to return Obasa thickets. State of Nation, Nigeria flowing with tears and blood, says the Anglican Church. How Nigeria maltreated Igbos for decades, Okwesilize Umodo. It's on the front page of the Vanguard newspaper. And we also have not so good news. Further hike in electricity tariff will be resisted, says the Nigerian Labour Congress. And Ramadan Khan Napton fumes over closure of schools. Rwanda plots in sports. Rwanda plots Super Eagles fall, as they will be playing World Cup qualifiers soon. Let's touch on the Lagos Assembly crisis. It's been, I mean, they've called it the return of Obasa season 1, 2, and 3, and it doesn't seem to want to end. What do you make of the latest drama that we've witnessed? Obasa coming into the State House Assembly and then presiding over the matters of the Assembly with 3 or 4 members. You see, anything you may want to say about the Tinubu kind of politics, it's become very, very clear now that the day he leaves the Lagos politics, that maybe, because everybody, maybe some of us that are political participants actually look at Lagos as an example of calm politicking, where the House of Assembly is always very calm. You don't often hear of crisis and all of that, and all of that. So, and it's a product of the kind of Baba Sokpe kind of politics. Baba Sokpe means that Baba has said, and everybody seems to align with whatever Baba says. But now Baba is extremely very busy in Abuja. So it looks as if that one of the things that has been keeping Lagos in political peace is the Baba Sokpe kind of politics. Now Baba cannot Sokpe because Baba is really very far away, and we're seeing all of this. But it's actually not a good side for a center of excellence most of the people actually learn from the process of governance in Lagos, from projects and policies of government, from innovation and ability of the Lagos state government to be able to manage a populace of about 23 million people. So when you now get to a point where 4 is greater than the other number, then you continue to just be concerned. But of course,
I understand we're a democracy, and
yeah,
people always highlight the principles of separation of powers. Some have said, you know, it's time for the president to speak out, being a former governor of Lagos State and being his home state. Do you think the president should interfere in this matter?
Often, you remember the issue of River State, that the president at a point invited Governor Fubara and former Governor Wike. But in this case, I don't even think the governor and the president needs to speak openly. He just needs to maybe talk to a few people so that we can all just enjoy the peace that we've always enjoyed in Lagos. But what we are having presently, without support or not supporting anyone, I think it's not a good sign. Lagos has gone past this level politically.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I would like to say thank you to you, Dotun, for your time as always.
It's a pleasure
to join us for this analysis. I will be having you back shortly. You're watching Breakfast Central here on News Central Television. Which Way Nigeria is next, so stay with us. They served, they built, they sacrificed, and now they suffer. Picture this: you served for decades, shaping young minds, saving lives, defending the nation, believing in a system that in the end turns its back on you. And your reward: a life of unpaid dues, unkept promises, and a fight for survival in the very nation you helped build. Some sleep on the bridges because their pensions are unpaid. Some die in endless verification lines, waiting for money that they earned with their blood and sweat. Some too weak, some too sick, simply perish. Meanwhile, the government watches, it promises, it delays. As of 2024, Nigeria owed over 193 billion naira in pension arrears. 32 states are behind, some owing retirees over 5 years. In Ogun State, teachers who retired in 2012 are still waiting. In Imo State, pensioners who dared to protest were met with tear gas and police batons. And in Benue, the governor admitted to owing retirees over 17 months pensions. 17 months, that's 6 years without income. Yet, politicians fly private jets, allocate billions for luxury SUVs, and now prove outrageous pensions for themselves, while pensioners perish in poverty. Former governors retire into unimaginable luxury, living like royalty on the people's expense. Consider Lagos. The pension package is 100% of the current governor's salary for life. 2 houses, 1 in Lagos, 1 in Abuja. 3 brand new cars replaced every 3 years. Free medical care for himself and his family. A full staff of cooks, stewards, and drivers, all paid for by the state. River State takes it a step further. A house anywhere in Nigeria. 3 brand new cars for 4 years. 300% of their salary every 4 years. Just for furniture. Security detail, medical care, and luxury allowances. This isn't governance. This is daylight robbery. Sanctioned, budgeted, and shamelessly defended. What a spectacular arrangement. Governors serve for just 4 to 8 years and retire as billionaires, while civil servants give their entire lives and retire into suffering. The future is not a distant dream. It's the consequence of today. If we allow injustice to thrive, if we watch in silence as our elders perish in neglect, then we are architects of our own demise. Because one day, the roles will reverse and we will reap what we sow. Good morning, Nigerians.
Welcome back to Breakfast Central. The controversy surrounding Senate President Godswill Akpabio and Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan has taken a dramatic turn. Natasha's allegations of sexual harassment against Akpabio have sparked a heated debate, with many calling for a thorough investigation.
Meanwhile, Akpabio's wife, Unoma, has defended her husband, describing him as a disciplined man. However, Natasha remains adamant that she has concrete evidence to support her claims. The situation has become increasingly complex, with both sides trading accusations. Natasha's husband, High Chief Amaewhule-led, has also weighed in, calling on the Senate to treat his wife with respect and dignity. And here's what we should know.
First, Natasha claims to have concrete evidence against Akpabio. Former Senate President Bukola Saraki has called for a transparent investigation into the allegations. The National Association of Nigerian Students, NANS, has urged President Bola Tinubu to intervene and prevent a national embarrassment. Now, as the controversy unfolds, it's essential to consider the potential impact of public trust in the government. The Senate must prioritize transparency and accountability in their investigation to maintain their integrity. Now, joining us this morning to discuss this controversy and what the implications are, we have Gloria Edukere, communications consultant. Good morning. Thank you very much for joining us. And we also have legal practitioner Douglas Ogbankwa joining us. Thank you very much for joining us, Mr. Ogbankwa. I'll begin with you. These are strong allegations that have been made by Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan. We've seen reactions and counter-reactions from the wife of the Senate President to the husband of Senator Natasha, who's spoken up in her defense, from her lawyers also writing letters to the wife of the Senate President asking her to sit this one out, and that the Senate President has a right to speak for himself. So now we haven't heard anything yet from the camp of the Senate President. What does this mean? We know that silence does not necessarily imply consent, or shouldn't mean that he's agreeing that he has done this. But the fact that he hasn't said anything, does it speak to maybe the implication, any stronger implications that we should be maybe considering?
Thank you very much. The thing is that people usually have some strategy the way conduct their matters. Looking at this issue from a very dispassionate point of view, I would say that the Senate President may have his own strategy of trying to handle this matter. Perhaps asking his spouse to contend with the Senator Natasha Akpoti could be a way of handling the matter, woman to woman. But if you were to ask me about, will I say, the authenticity or otherwise of the claim, I seem to have my doubts. And that is brought particularly because of the antecedents of Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan. If you look at what the trail of activities, political activities, you will see several claims of she accusing different people of sexual harassment.
Can you name some of them, please? Can you name some of these people?
We have claims. We have claims in the media. We've seen allegedly Ayabelo, Raye Omokri. We even had an issue, though they've come to debunk the letter. There was a letter that was written by Senior Advocate of Nigeria, written to the husband, saying that about issues of breach of promise to marriage. So there seems to be a lot of claims by her of being sexually harassed. And the question you ask yourself is she the only female politician in Nigeria?
I'd like to come in here.
She's the only one that this story seems to resonate around. So which I, as a person, I seem to have my doubts about the authenticity or otherwise, the authenticity of her claim. Because it seems to look at her conversation on your sister television station, that when the husband was with her, walking slowly behind. And after the alleged advances were made, you did not tell your husband, on our own admission, that day, there was even stories of don't you trust me and all that. So it doesn't really add up as far as I'm concerned. I possess facts for a living, and I know she's also a lawyer, but looking at the whole scenario, I don't think that she's telling the truth.
Okay, in the same light, you said you process facts for a living. So it's a fact that in 2020, the former NDDC boss, she said this on camera, that Senator Akpabio made sexual advances on her person, and she had to give him a dirty slap. This is, it's verifiable fact. So could we go the same way and say, you know, somebody has accused him of sexual harassment in the past. She came out on national television to make these claims. That makes him guilty. Let's also look at the integrity of the Nigerian Senate. I mean, this has gone beyond the person of Godswill Akpabio. We're looking at the Senate as an institution. I'd like to bring in our second guest here. What do you think should be done now? I mean, because the reactions from other quarters, is it time for the Senate to institute a probe into this matter, or should we consider it an in-house issue?
Thank you very much, and good morning, everybody. So I'd say that I think that it is time for the Senate to step in here, especially because this is now gone beyond just an in-house issue. It's now more or less like a gender issue. It's a very sensitive topic, and I do know that the Senate is already working behind the scenes to ensure that there's a solution to this, or that there's some sort of communication around this. But at the same time, I do think that it is best to speak on matters as sensitive as this, especially because it has been a recurring thing, right? Not just for the Senate House, but in other places. And this is not just limited to only politics, okay? And I do feel like a next step for this should be to actually do proper investigation, right? So that we are not just saying, oh, there are stories, there are claims, there are allegations and accusations, but there's concrete evidence to show that this happened, this is when it happened, and if the two parties need to have a sit down to have conversations regarding this, then fine.
Douglas, don't you seem to agree with Gloria as opposed to determining the validity or the correctness of Natasha's claims, that there should be proper investigation to determine who's speaking the truth, what the true position is, rather than casting aspersions on, you know, her claim? Because what we find, and the fear is that in many situations, when women complain about being sexually abused, they're not listened to. Society often shuts them down and makes it look like, you know, we haven't really made a lot of progress against, you know, in the fight against sexual abuse. So it's a bit worrying to hear you say that you do not believe her when she hasn't even been tried, or she hasn't been brought before a court of competent jurisdiction, or we don't have the facts, an investigation hasn't been called for. I should think that that might, you know, that should be the proper steps as opposed to us deciding who may or may not be correct. What do you think? Why are you holding brief for Akpabio?
I'm very sure you would have been happy if I said I believe her, right? Now, you see, it's actually my opinion. It doesn't make it whether otherwise, you know. So my point really is that the only way we can ascertain the veracity or otherwise of this claim is through a proper investigation. And you don't just come and you make wide allegations without proof.
They say they have proof. Her lawyers say that they have proof.
Show some chat, perhaps videos, perhaps should have been able to show some evidence to show that there was actually sexual harassment. Sexual harassment is not something that you do without some kind of evidence. I personally, I am against any form of sexual harassment as a person. That is why we at the NBA, we have the NBA sexual harassment policy. And any lawyer that knows his onions would definitely follow the NBA sexual harassment policy. I want to tell you why I particularly said what I said is because there seems to be a mob action going on online. Nigerians like following the bandwagon effects. We like it when the story is trending and we are part of the crowd that follows the story. I beg to differ. And that is why I am joining my friend Gloria to ask that there should be a thorough investigation into this matter. Let everybody come with his or her evidence to show if indeed that Senator Natasha can show that Senator Akpabio assaulted her sexually or sexually harassed her. I would come to national TV to apologize to her. But as I stand right here, I do not believe her. And I have a right to say I don't believe her.
Do you believe, Joy, do you believe the former NDDC boss, Joy Nunye, who said, I slapped him, I'm an Ogoni woman. He came up to me and I gave him a dirty slap. The Akpabio camp never denied that happened. His lawyers never wrote to her. There was no statement. There was no investigation. Right? Do you believe that in the same light? Do you believe her statement that she came up on me and I gave him a dirty slap?
Well, you are saying that Akpabio did not deny it, but then I saw a statement from his office saying that nothing like that happened. And you know, so you see, Oscar Wilde said something. He said, everything is in life is all about sex, but sex is all about power. What I can tell you that these things are more than that than meets the eyes. There are deep issues involved in these matters, and nobody's coming to tell us the truth. People are just coming to push their truths according to Natasha Akpoti. Let me say my truth. And your truth may not be Akpabio's truth. My truth might not be Gloria's truth. So the truth of the matter is that there are deep issues involved. If you understand the inner workings of the Abuja community, a lot goes on there. And you coming on to a national TV to make such very wealthy allegations without any proof, I find it very, very detestable. It's unacceptable. You should come with some proof. When they accused a House of Rep member of collecting money, you could see the conversation between that House of Rep member and the person he collected the money from on national TV. That is what I want Senator Akpoti to show us.
Can I ask a question?
Made advances on you. It is not so easy for you to say it's a gender issue that you shut down people that cry out when it comes to sexual harassment. At times, we really don't know who the victim is right here. Because if you accuse a man of sexually harassing you, and you don't have proof, who then is the victim?
You and I know that in conversations of sexual assault, those are some of the hardest things to prove. For example, rape that would require corroboration is the hardest to prove because there are hardly people there when the actions are occurring. But yes, her team have said that they have proof. And we're hoping that in the coming days, they would be subject to, a panel will be put together and that there will be proper investigation. But if she does have proof, and the proof does point to the fact that this happened, do you think any actions will be taken? And I ask this because we are in a country where a member, a legislator, a sitting legislator at the time, assaulted someone in a sex toy shop.
Senator Elisha Abo of Adamawa
And it was like nothing happened. A lot of noise on this, in social media, and everything went back to normal until he had the nerve to start speaking up against some of the things happening in the house before his time was up. But it wasn't because he assaulted someone. We've seen other lawmakers assaulted. We saw the lawmaker who assaulted a taxi driver. So do you really believe that if she does have evidence that points to the fact that he actually did it, that anything will be done?
Absolutely. The senator that assaulted the sex toys, the young lady, was convicted. Many Nigerians didn't follow up the story. He was convicted. The senator that assaulted the Uber driver was arraigned in court.
I'm asking in terms of also their position in the House. Conviction or not, he was still a member of the House, right? It didn't stop him.
Until he lost the election.
Exactly. It didn't stop him from participating in Nigeria's politics. So does it really affect their political influence? All right, unfortunately, we're not able to speak to him. I don't know if we have...
I would like to ask Gloria a question. I mean, Gloria, as a young Nigerian woman looking at this, what sort of message does this send to aspiring young women who might want to throw their hat into the murky waters of Nigerian politics? And what should be done to protect to give women more rights, not just in the political sphere, but also in the workplace? Because so many men don't even know that, making lewd comments about women could be translated as sexual harassment.
Thank you very much. So I would say that it is very important to create very inclusive spaces for women to thrive, and not just limited to politics again. right? Because if we're not able to solve some of these issues that we see happening around us now, what is the criteria? What is the message that we're passing to other people is that we can't actually solve our problems. That's what it means. And we have a habit of always dismissing things in Nigeria. We have that habit of always sweeping things under the carpets, right? And it seems like the news is trending for a couple of days or a couple of weeks, and after that, it becomes a reference point in the future, and the case was dismissed, right? It doesn't encourage participation. It doesn't encourage female participation in politics. It doesn't encourage women to actually stand up and fight for their rights, because they do have reference points to show that, oh, this person did it in the past and nothing was done about it. So why would I speak up if I have an issue like this? Why would I speak up if something like this happens to my daughter? And I'd like to say that for all the men out there, sometimes it is easy for us to take sides, right? But at the same time, how about you look at it from a very introspective perspective? If this happened to my daughter, if this happened to my sister, if this happened to a female friend around me, would I react the same way? Would I respond the same way that I'm responding right now? And so we need to do better. We need to do better because we're all striving for gender equality. We all want to have an equal world. We want a world where women are able to thrive. And for women to be able to thrive, they need to be seen. They need to be heard. They need to be understood. And matters like this are very sensitive. We need to delve into these matters to ensure that there is credibility, there is authenticity, and at the end of the day, we're able to validate women in the way that they need to be validated, to encourage other women participation as well. Thank you. A great way to kick us off into International Women's Month. Gloria Edukere, thank you very much for joining us this morning on the show. Unfortunately, we could not wrap up the conversation with Douglas Ogbankwa, a legal practitioner. Thank you as well for joining us. We wish you a wonderful rest of the day.
Thank you.
I think the final way that we here will cap up the conversation is saying that it's important that thorough investigation be conducted so we know what the true position is regarding the sexual allegations against the Senate President, because like Benga said, it's not just about the Senate President now, it's also the institution that he represents. And it would be a shame that we keep having this kind of conversation. This is not the first time that we've heard these allegations, so there should be thorough investigation, proper investigation, before we can know exactly what the true position is. But that's all that we have today on Breakfast Central. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you again tomorrow. Let us know your thoughts at News Central TV on all platforms. I am Olive Emodi.
And I'm Benga Borowa. See you tomorrow. Terrific Tuesday. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.